There are some major myths out there about exercise for people over 50, and in today's video I'm going to reveal what those myths are so you can safely avoid them and exercise happily. If you don't know who I am, my name is Harlow and I'm the Over-Fifties specialist physio here at HT Physio in Farnham, and today we're going to be talking about some of the biggest exercise myths for over 50s and how to overcome them. I'm going to show you what these myths are in just a moment, but I just want to let you know first that the advice in this video is not suitable for everyone. Everyone's individual, so do make sure you get checked out by your doctor before you put anything that you hear today into action. And if it causes you any extra pain, just avoid it. Anyway, let's have a look at the myths and what to do about them. The first exercise myth for people over the age of 50 is that it's impossible to build muscle as you get over 50. And I've seen it so many times that I'm convinced it's a myth, but I wanted to prove it to you, so I went online and I had a look at a number of different scientific papers, and the first one I found showed this. So, in this paper, researchers took a number of adults who are all over the age of 65 years old. What did they do? They did 10 weeks of resistance training, so it's just over 2 months, not that long, and each week they did 3 times 1 hour sessions. After they did this intervention, they took all their body measurements and compared it to the before readings. And what they found was that on average, these people who were over 65 gained 1.4 kilograms of muscle mass, that's lean muscle tissue. They raised their metabolism by an average of 7%, which means that just staying alive, they now burn 7% more calories, which means it's much easier for them to keep fatty tissue off their body. And they also lost an average of 1.8 kilograms of fat at the same time. So not bad for people over the age of 65, right? And that proves that it is possible to gain muscle over 65 as long as you're engaging in this kind of a program. Now, resistance training seems to be the key when it comes to building and maintaining muscle, and as it shows in this study, it will also help you to decrease fat too. So prioritize resistance training and you absolutely can gain muscle mass over 50. The second exercise myth for over 50s is that over 50s shouldn't lift heavy weights. Now, I can understand where this advice comes from. It comes from people who want to keep you safe because there is a slightly increased risk of injury from lifting heavy weights, especially if your technique is not good. However, I would argue that lifting heavy weights becomes more important the older we get. Let me show you why. So, this is the research I've done about lifting light weights versus lifting heavy weights. So, we've got 4 different variables. We've got muscle mass, so how much muscle you're going to build. We've got strength, so how much strength you'll get. We've got bone mass, so how much bone we can regain or prevent the loss of. And then we've got the safety aspect here. So the thing I see more often than anything else is that people say older people should only lift light weights. And it's true. Light weights will help you to build muscle mass. If you keep lifting light weights to the point where you're fatigued, your muscles will get bigger. And the same thing happens with heavy weights as well. So that's a tick in both columns. However, when we move down to strength, the relationship breaks apart. Obviously, lifting heavy weights will build your strength, which is great, and that can have knock-on effects to your independence as well, to make you more mobile and more independent. But the jury's still out as to whether light weights actually really improve your strength. If you have to pick up something really heavy and you've only been training with light weights, you still aren't going to be able to do it, just because you haven't exposed your body to that stimulus. So we don't get a check in the light column, but we do in the heavy column. Let's move down to bone, and this is where things get even more interesting. So as we get older, it's a fact that we lose bone tissue with every passing year past the age of 50. In fact, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men is going to develop osteoporosis, which is loss of bone at some point in their lives. Now, heavy weights have been shown to not only slow down the decline of your bone tissue, but also to help you rebuild it. And they can help you rebuild up to 1 to 3% of your bone with each year that you do it. However, the same thing is not seen for your light weights. We don't build the same amount of bone as we do with heavy weights when we're just lifting light. Finally, the safety thing we do have to take into consideration. So lifting light weights is pretty safe, lifting heavy weights should be safe, but your technique has to be spot on. So I put a question mark here because if your technique is good, you're absolutely fine. But if it's not quite right, you are at risk, which is why it's really important to get assessed for your individual circumstances. But with all this aside, I would say that heavy weights win on the balance of things. There's no real reason why older people shouldn't lift heavy weights. It's an absolute myth. So next time you're in the gym, try and push yourself a little bit more, slightly heavier weights, as long as it's safe for you to do so, less repetitions, and you're going to get these benefits which outweigh this stuff just with the light weights. The third exercise myth for people over 50 is that cardio is the best thing you can do. Now, cardio is things like running, cycling, swimming, things that get the heart and the lungs pumping. And I agree, this is a great form of exercise, but I wouldn't say it's the most important for people over 50. Now, the thing that I think is the most important for people of this age group is resistance training. And this isn't just my opinion, this is backed up by science. Let's have a look at a couple of variables for your health and compare cardio against resistance training. So we've got cardio on this side and resistance training like weights and dumbbells and bars and bands and things like that on this side. Now, we've got the health of your heart, the health of your lungs, your muscle mass, your strength, your bone tissue, and your metabolism. Let's have a look one by one. So with cardio, obviously it's great for the heart and the lungs. So we get 2 ticks for each of these. However, when we move down to muscle mass, it's actually been shown that cardio cannot build muscle mass, and in fact, it may contribute to a loss of muscle mass. If you do enough cardio that you're burning so many calories and not refeeding enough, your body has to get those calories from somewhere, so it can actually take it from your muscle. Now, as a result, you don't actually build any strength doing cardio. Even if you feel stronger, that might just be because you've become lighter as a result. So cardio doesn't really build strength. The jury is also still out as to whether cardio can help you rebuild bone tissue or stop its decline. Now, if you're running, you probably can regain some bone tissue, but swimming and cycling, those actually make bone tissue go down because they're non-weight bearing activities and there isn't enough of a stimulus to help you relay new bone. So maybe cardio helps with bone, but also maybe not. But the thing about cardio that I find most scary is what it does to your metabolism over a long period of time. Obviously, when you do cardio, like running or cycling, you are burning a lot of calories at the time. But after a while of doing this, your body learns what happens when you do your cardio. And as a result, it becomes more efficient. That means that over time, you start to burn less calories at rest than before you did all your running. And this is why some people get into a vicious circle where they keep doing lots of cardio and they just can't shift any more weight. They're trying to eat less and less and less. They're doing more and more cardio just to get the same effect because their metabolism has dropped so much. So cardio is not bad. It does great things for your heart and your lungs. And if you want to lose weight in the short term, it can help. But let's compare it to resistance training. So first of all, the heart and the lungs do get a benefit from resistance training. That's been proven time and time again. It's not as big of a benefit as if you're doing cardio, but it is still a benefit. So they get a single tick there. Now, resistance training is the classic way to build muscle and strength. So 2 ticks for both of those. And it is in fact one of the only ways that's been proven to rebuild lost bone tissue. So if you're worried about osteoporosis and you're not resistance training, this is quite literally the best thing you can do to help you regain that lost bone. And then finally, if we look at metabolism, resistance training has the opposite effect to cardio. When we do resistance training, we build new muscle, which means we have more muscle on our bodies, which means we need more calories just to stay at the same weight than we did before. That means our metabolism has gone up, which means that you're allowed to eat more when you resistance train and you won't put on as much fatty tissue. Unlike with cardio, you have to eat less and less and less over time. With resistance training, most people find they can eat more and more and more over time. So if you're worried about calorie restriction, this is the guy to go for. So it's a myth that cardio is the best. I don't think it is at all. I think resistance training far outweighs it. My humble opinion, but also backed up by science. And hopefully you agree as well. Before we go any further, I just want to tell you about 3 Tip Friday. 3 Tip Friday is my weekly email that I send out to my list, and it features 3 of the most interesting things I've found that week. It could be a health tip, it could be a piece of research I'm reading, or it could be a new tool that I've found to be really useful for helping people get more mobile. It's totally free. I just send it out once a week. There's no annoying promos inside, and you can sign up for it by going down below this video and entering your email in the 3 Tip Friday link. The next exercise myth for people over 50, and I see this more often in people over the age of 75, is that walking is enough. And when these people say walking is enough, what they really mean is walking is enough to keep my muscle, it's enough to keep my bones strong, and it's enough to keep me healthy. And walking is a fantastic exercise, don't get me wrong. It's one of my favourite forms of exercise, both for myself and my patients, and I recommend it to just about everyone. However, if you want to maintain your muscle and your bone tissue, it isn't enough. And the research has shown this time and time again. People who only walk do suffer from a loss of muscle mass over time, and their bone tissue does also decline over time as well, if they're not doing anything else about it. Now, this isn't to say walking is bad. It does definitely slow down the rate of loss. It's just not enough to prevent it or reverse it. Now, if you combined walking with resistance training, in my mind, you've got the perfect combination, because your walking helps to keep you cardiovascularly fit, and it does send a signal to the body that all of the functional muscles are needed. And then you've got your resistance training, which helps you build muscle and new bone. You are quite literally knocking it out the park if you do both of those things regularly every single week. So walking alone is not enough. Combine it with resistance training, however, and your results are going to be so much better. Research has actually shown that walking each week increases the results from your resistance training. So it isn't just that walking's a nice to have, it's also really important. It's just that doing it on its own is not quite enough. Then the final myth for people over the age of 50 when it comes to exercise is that gyms are a scary place to go. Now, I totally understand this perspective. And it seems to me that people over the age of 50, or especially people over 65, have a bit of like an ick when it comes to going into a gym. They think, oh, it's not really for me. I feel very uncomfortable. Everyone's going to be looking at me. People are going to be judging me because I don't know what I'm doing. And I just don't want to go there. It feels uncomfortable. I totally get it. And yes, some people do have that experience. But I must say, over the last 10 years, the attitude has changed dramatically. And we now see how important this kind of a thing is for people, especially people over 50. And in my experience, I found gyms to actually be a friendly and inclusive place. What you'll probably find is if you see someone looking at you, they're thinking, can I go over and just offer this person a hand? It isn't because they're judging, it's because they want you to get the best out of your workout. People in gyms are all there for a shared goal. They want to improve themselves, they want to improve their health, and they don't want to knock other people down generally. They aren't interested in judging you. And the truth is, everyone feels a little bit self-conscious in the gym. Even the people who you see looking in great shape, they're often checking themselves out in the mirror because they want to see that they're still looking as they hope they look. And if things look slightly off for them, they can start to feel really self-conscious. Now, to me and you, that comes across as someone who's just flexing in the mirror because they love the way they're looking. But in reality, they're not always as confident as they seem. So if you're not that confident, please don't let that get in the way of going in. One thing that can really help is going in with a partner or going in with someone you trust or someone who's a bit more experienced than you and can show you the ropes. And also getting a couple of personal training sessions just to be shown around the equipment, just so you know what you're doing and just so you are sure you're not going to hurt yourself, can go a long way to helping you feel more confident. So don't let that get in the way of you getting into the gym and getting your exercise done. But above all, exercise should be fun. So if you don't like the gym just because you don't enjoy it, do something else. Feel free to run, feel free to cycle, feel free to hike or walk, or do whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. As long as you're doing something, you're still going to get some benefits. So those are the biggest exercise myths for over 50s. I hope you found this video useful and educational. If you have, do drop a comment below and just let me know, because it does help me to improve these videos for you in the future. And if you want to get more from me, there's loads more advice like the stuff you found in today's video in my book. It's called Thriving Beyond 50, and you can find it on Amazon using the link below. It's got loads more advice that I think you'll find useful. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time, and I'll speak to you on the next video.